sure. Wait, did I do? No, we are live. Hi, Justin.
Yeah.
We're here.
Hi.
We are. Hi. Everyone, I bullied Justin into doing this today. It's very exciting. I asked him many times over the course of the last few months, and he very obviously ignored me and did not respond to the, hey, let's record. Hey, do you want to record? Hey, do you want to record? And so now I finally had to throw down the gauntlet. Oh, God, my headphones died. That's how it's going.
He was basically like, you're not my friend anymore, or you have to record.
Yeah. So that's what's happening.
That was, within 12 hours, we were recording. Within 12 hours of this crisis, we are now recording. So that was how to do it. Did you just mute yourself or something? No.
There's like an echo. Probably. It's gonna go to my headphones in 1 second because my headphones died as I was talking. Hold on.
Like
Hi everyone. Well, whatever. Let's just talk. Oh, here it is. That's good. So we're here. There's a lot going on, Justin. Obviously,
Yeah.
I wanted to have this episode with you because a lot of different reasons. Obviously, like everybody knows us from Tanky Group Therapy. Everybody knows our show, Tanky Group Therapy. Everybody will have noticed that we haven't done it. We've slowed down considerably from our breakneck pace.
You know what I think? I think I feel the way I feel about it is like you guys, you and Lara literally started psychic militancy. So I was kind of like the psychic part of it is now like taken by like Lara. Like we handed it over to the professionals. You know, we were just kind of like, you know, like in jiu-jitsu, like a bunch of people who don't know jiu-jitsu will do jiu-jitsu in a garage and then they'll just like watch videos and do some practice some moves, but then a black belt shows up and you're like, okay, well now it's a real gym. And you know, so that's how I felt about it. Of course, you know, that doesn't mean we can't get together and talk and do what we do as non-psychological mental health professionals. We're professionals in our own right, surely. We read things. We, you know,
We're professional something.
I'm professional. I think of like my specialty.
Well, you're a professional way more than me. You're a human adult. You have responsibilities. You answer your emails. You're a just powerful man.
I don't answer podcast invitations.
Yeah, you don't answer those. But those
I'm
are
not gonna say. Okay, there's a podcast that I've been on several times. No, I think I've only been on it once. But they do this. They have a producer. They have a like formal invitation process, and I'm trying to duck them because, you know, I duck invitations now all the time. And so, but I'm gonna do it. If you guys are listening, I'm gonna do it. Okay, I'm not gonna say who you are, but I will do it. But I tried to duck it because they wrote the wrong person's name. So they were like, "Dear so and so," but it wasn't my name. And then they were like, "We'd like to invite you. We think you're great." And then I was like, "Oh, you know, this person you invited is awesome, but it's not me. So you might want to resend it to them." And then they were like, "No, we meant you. We just wrote the wrong name." So I don't know whether they're trying to save face or what. But,
well, so the thing is, though, is that in all of this, though, because this will go into a question, which was like the what's happened in the last 3 years is, and I think that obviously Tanky Group Therapy has been part of that. I'm gonna turn off my fan. The fan is blowing directly into my. I can't even turn off the fan. I think what's happened is that like the infrastructure of independent media has gone through so many radical changes. You were in it long before me also. We've talked about this a long time ago, that Justin is a true multimedia artist. He started with the pen and paper, the typewriters, and progressed to...
I did start with a typewriter.
I know.
My dad had a typewriter. Yeah.
I had a typewriter. I had a typewriter.
Yeah.
We had a like a word processor typewriter. That's like the kind of earliest thing I remember.
Oh, yeah. No, I had a brother, I think. I don't know. It was like a typewriter, like a real, you put the paper in and then you type and then the ink runs out. Yeah.
I mean, I guess so. The question is that like they partly the reason why I want to do these episodes with you, why I've been bugging you, is that like it's never been more apparent why we need like independent media, like this genocide and the wider sort of regional war that they've been brewing, right? Like part of that war is the media warfare against the world and the populations of the West and these individual countries and obviously the target countries. So I guess sort of at the opening, I want to ask you, like, what do you think, like, your sit reps do? Like, do they do something for you first and foremost? Are they for your own thinking? Are they like, do we, you know what I mean? Because it's not like we're having neutral people listen to us. Like, we don't have to convince who's like on the fence watching our streams. No one. People have like decided where they stand. But I guess that's not. I guess that's like a. That's not why we do this. We don't do this to convince people of things they don't believe in.
I don't even really believe in convincing people. It's been decades since I tried to convince anybody of anything. Because like convincing people of things to me is like American sales discourse. It's like sleazy. You're trying to get somebody to do something that's in your interest and not their interest. I always think of it philosophically more in educational terms. It's like you come to me with something you want to know that I know that you don't know. And then it's like there might be something stopping you from knowing it. It might just be that you don't have the information. It might be that you don't have some prerequisite before the information that you need that is making it hard for you to understand it. So that's like an education process. That's something you do with a teacher. And that's sort of like the way that I've always thought about what I do. The sit rep, it was discourse though. Like it was like the internet discourse because I started the sit reps. Yeah, I started the sit rep as out of irritation with the military analysts in the space, right? Because they were very
the
like
tanky sphere.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't even tankies. It was sort of like, again, I'll try to avoid naming names, but it's like there's a group of like former CIA, former Marines, former officers, lieutenant colonels, all like Western military, like Swiss, but for the most part it's Americans, but like there's a Swiss person or there's an MI6 person or whatever peppered in. And then like I watch, could be me, could be what's available. I think it's probably more what's available, but like I watch one person after another from these organizations, and they're giving the dissident perspective on the war. They're giving the analysis that like we know from our analysis of it, which is from the other side entirely. But they're sort of like, oh no, Iran is strong. Everybody says Iran is weak. Palestinians aren't. They're not out to slaughter every Jew in the world. They're fighting for freedom. Like they're saying like really basic things, but then it's also that they can't. They're also still in that American perspective. So they say a bunch of stupid things as well. They say things like, we won every battle. America is winning tactically, but not strategically. It's like, how are you winning tactically? You're not winning tactically. Or a lot of anti-Arab things, like when Syria fell in 2024. I mean, I was doing the sit rep before that, but when Syria fell, it was very like, well, Arab armies suck, and
because Arabs suck, yeah.
Well, because Arabs suck. And,
Martin,
the Russians
I know. I'm going to say his name. I'm not afraid to. It's okay. It was Martinov and Justin. I have to tell. I'm gonna out you, Justin. Martinov was Justin's model for his media career.
That's right.
Why? Because Martinov does not give a fuck. Although his background has changed. Like he's got a much more professional background now. After like 5 years, I guess
he's got some kind of wicker. You have that wicker cage. I've seen you in a wicker cage as well.
That's at my mom's.
Kind of wicker cage to hide his kitchen or whatever. But
that atmosphere is interesting because this is the thing, is that it does vary. That is a kind of weird. It's not like the brocent sphere that like is mostly anonymous, right? Like brocent, ocent, what is it? Something intelligent, open source. Open source intelligence. Like this is one of the things that's changed in the time that like you've been writing and you've been working, like since in the reportage of how we think about wars, conflicts, geopolitics, there have been considerable new developments with how we can get information, how we consume information, how we interpret it, and then how we give it back to people. Because that's also what I think our primary purpose in this work is that like people support me and you. Although you don't have a Patreon, which is ridiculous. You should have a Patreon, Justin. Can we bully Justin into starting a Patreon?
No, just give the money to give the money to your fundraiser.
That's true. Give the money to my Palestinian friends. But it does say that people support us, people come to us because we spend our lives online consuming this stuff, and we are not shy of articulating our positions, and we're also not cowed by the sort of liberal imperialist media sphere around us, because that's like the first layer of defense in any of this, is like the liberal naysayer, oh, you're too extreme, you support the regime, right? Like that's the first. When you get past them, like when you get past them, then you get to the chuds and the fascists. But the first ring of defense, the first Iron Dome, is liberals who tell you don't support the regime.
Yeah, like what is the Jordan? What is the nearest ring of defense? What is the Palestinian Authority? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the liberals. I mean, it is the liberals, but like I kind of think now that it is actually these Intel people, the Intel roundtables, because like if you look at the Intel roundtables, they're not liberals. They're not some of them are fascists. You know, like you'll hear McGregor.
Oh yes.
You'll hear McGregor like basically the way McGregor talks about Bolsheviks and Nazis and stuff is pretty,
Phil Girardi? Phil Girardi? Hello.
Him I don't watch. I've narrowed it down. These days I only really watch McGregor for whatever reason. And Alistair Crook and then obviously like on the same channel they have Morandi, so I never miss Morandi because Morandi does these rounds, right? And Laith. I never miss Laith, I never miss Morandi, and then on the other side, on the same podcast, I watch generally McGregor and Crook, and so some of them are very right wing, but they're always I don't know, they have that kind of tanky realism that we have. So it's not like they have the same politics, but they have roughly the same assessment in terms of the forces that are on the battlefield. So when you're listening to a liberal, you're listening to true delusion, like complete and utter delusion about, Israeli omnipotence, Zionist, they're all American exceptionalists. They all contort their ideas of none of them believe Palestinians are human beings. Like it's super hard for us to get into that. But if you're like a realist like us, then you can watch the McGregors and the Alistair Crooks and stuff, because it's like they're speaking facts, even whatever their politics are. But then those people will steer you into weird dead ends and cul-de-sacs, right? Like McGregor is like he always gets some like immigration stuff in there. He always gets his,
he does.
Mexico is invading America stuff, or his,
well, it's like the Tucker thing. The Tucker thing is, I'm against this war because we should be imprisoning sans papier. Like that's like, okay, so that's your answer? That's your answer to this crisis?
Yeah, then like he makes so much sense when he's saying things we already know and agree with. So you're just like, oh, maybe we can trust him on the things we aren't really looking at. But no, absolutely not. Like, so if you're conspiratorially inclined, as I have become more and more over the years, okay, you think this is all on purpose. This has to all be on purpose. This has to all serve a purpose. And the infiltration of the geopolitics space by resistance sounding people who are ultimately literally CIA and MI6, and like it's in their bio, or lieutenant colonel, and they still answer to lieutenant colonel. Then or like the Joe Kent, like Joe Kent is all over the place now.
Yeah. And
Joe Kent was like, we have to hit Iran really hard and then leave. Like, what? Like that was one of his like great like. This is the grand strat, and as soon as he wrote that letter to resign, everybody was like, okay, Joe Kent, like right? We are all Joe Kent now. Like je suis Joe Kent, right? Hashtag je suis Joe Kent. Like, so
that's how desperate. That's the thing, is that like the full spectrum dominance that Zionists enjoy in the Westoid media sort of complex, industrial complex, is so that's where they have power. That's where they're omnipotent. Right? They can just squish people out of careers. Like, how many people get stomped out of their jobs during the last 3 years? Like, naked, open McCarthyism, no shame whatsoever.
They brag about it. Yeah.
They brag about it. They say, "Oh yeah."
Why does this guy still have a job? Why does this guy still? Yeah. Why is he allowed to stream? And like alternative media, which is what we used to call ourselves. Like we're all on social media, and they can take us down, right? And we can go from Rumble. I had I don't know how many you've had taken down. I had one video with Nora taken down when Abu Ubaidah was assassinated.
I remember that. Yeah.
And they were like, "You're saying nice things about terrorists, so we took your video down." And it's on Rumble. Whatever. I just uploaded it to Rumble. But like Rumble is. Like if they catch on, they'll take it off Rumble too, right? Like, if the fascists who run Rumble don't like it,
well, that's an interesting question. Is that what's happened? And we'll move on from this, because I do want to trace something out with you that I did not announce in our chat before. But I was thinking is that like this has, since I think this has. You said earlier about the conspiratorial, this is like by design. I actually think this has split the American ruling class. Like I think I think losing a war does things that we don't see. They invoke like the liberal news media has suddenly found a spine. Has suddenly found like an anti-Zionist spine. Like they're reporting on a little bit, not really, but like they don't report on. But I mean, in terms of the American context, this is their revenge for all the violence that he did to them, right? So Trump came on his way up, using people's hatred of the media as one of his like dog whistles or whatever, as one of his like clout chasing ways, and then they would dutifully react in the way that they always do, which is like, I can't believe he said this, I can't believe he said this. And of course that would just feed into it, be like, oh, we triggered them, we triggered the libs. I mean, this guy triggered the libs into 2 presidencies. I mean that but what I want to say is that like, because they lost, and I think it's more than apparent that they lost. There's like, I mean, I know we're talking about, there's like saber rattling happening right now. I mean, it could happen as we're talking. Chat, please tell us if the war starts again. I mean, it hasn't stopped, but
like if they bomb Iran's power, like Tehran's power plants or whatever, like Trump said he's gonna do.
Yeah, but then the thing is, like, it's that they've already tried all this. They already went through the process of doing all this. Like, bombing didn't work, and so here's the thing. I think that, I mean, we've talked about this privately, but this is the one too many regime change wars problem, right? Because it's a contradiction, because they had to bulldoze the entire region, figuratively and literally, of sovereignty. To get to the biggest obstacle for long-term dominance, which is Iran, right? Like that is the biggest obstacle. There's no other way of saying that. Iran's size, its refusal to kowtow to Western anything or whatever, like that didn't work. So this strategy of 7 countries in 5 years, right? I mean, it took them a lot longer, right? But they're on country 7 now.
Let me stop you right there. 7 countries in 5 years. I was let's just do this with me. Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Oman.
No, don't put Oman in there. No Omanis. Leave the Omanis out of it.
They made they agreed to the corridor and they got hit. But what I'm saying is that it's just funny that it adds up exactly the same.
That's funny. Actually, I never thought of that. But thing is that those countries that they were bulldozing were real countries. The countries that Iran is bulldozing are fake, Summerhill subway station facade. Like there's a subway station in Toronto called Summerhill. No one's ever in it. I don't think it actually runs. I've never seen someone
Does
getting
the
on
train
or off.
stop there, or does it
Yeah,
just
the
go
train
through?
does stop there, but you wonder, like, what is this for? And that's like the entire GCC. It's like a Summerhill subway station. Like,
Oh, that
what
is
are
one
we
of the
even
richest
doing here?
parts of Toronto too, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's Rosedale, but it's like. But the thing is that when it's much harder to bulldoze real countries than it is to get like Pliant's, Comprador, Quisling regimes, right? That are a facade, right? So this is like the way we got here is what I want to talk to you about, because we've watched it since, I don't know, we were kids, like since like we were
Well,
teenagers.
yeah, and,
like,
and it's sort of like, I have this thing I've thought about today too, where like I don't even remember, the way that we're immersed in the this news cycle. Like, I don't even remember what it was like when Iran did True Promise 1. It was like April of 2024, right? I know it was April because it was around my birthday and my father-in-law had died, and we went to like the 40-day anniversary of, like, the 40-day celebration.
Yeah, the 40th,
like the 40-day mourning thing. Out in the eastern suburbs of Toronto, and I was getting out of the car in the afternoon, and then like my phone was lighting up, and you, I think, were the one who was like in our chat being like, they've begun, it has begun, and but back then, like, think about all the things we were worried about that we're not anymore. Like, worried, if we were thinking like, oh, Iran's gonna let them off the hook, and Iran's timid, and maybe the reformers are gonna make a deal, and like so many of those things are not like, and like the second round, when Israel assassinated all those leaders in the first round, and like and in March they just this March they assassinated the Rafbar, but like there hasn't been like the way the previous rounds of war have it was like every other day you'd hear about a major leader getting killed, and it has been a lot of weeks now that hasn't happened. And like, they were bombing the news studio when Morandi was there. Morandi was writing things like, if I die, like, it doesn't matter, because people will, follow these other people, and you'll, my life doesn't matter. And like, he's not tweeting like that now. Like, there's so many things that have changed in terms of like what the way the war is unfolding, and how we are analyzing it. The people are like pro-resistance people are complaining about things that we would have, like, people would have dreamed of complaining about just a couple
they
of
didn't
years
hit
ago.
Kuwait hard enough today.
Exactly. Like, these so many psychological barriers in our minds have disappeared just because of the way Iran has behaved. And like, Iran has just gotten so mad, and they are really slow to change. But like, once they've, like, I don't think they're gonna get less mad now. Like, they're not gonna. It's just these changes have happened so gradually, or like thoroughly, that we don't even remember. Like, and let me just go back, because you were talking about how we used to live and what we used to see. Like, Yugoslavia in 1999 was like one of the first ones that I really like was watching as an adult and having to watch unfold. And lots of very controversial, like lots of leftists wanted Yugoslavia to be bombed, and like Hezbollah was like, they were all on the side of the Bosnian Muslim separatists, materially, and with fighters and everything like that. So Yugoslavia was broken up, and like Yugoslavia was, there's this famous story that like some NATO representative, I think from Finland, met with Slobodan Milosevic, and there were people there, and the guy from Finland said, if you don't surrender, Belgrade is going to look like this table. And he like slid his hand across the table. Like, he slid his hand across the table. And that was like that was enough to make Milosevic basically surrender. and he was then taken to the Hague and whatever, killed in his cell, all of that. So if somebody were think about like a meeting, think about if Vance said that to Arakji at in Pakistan, if he said, if you don't surrender, Tehran is gonna look like this table. Arakji would be like, okay, so is Kuwait and Bahrain and and Jordan and Israel too. So let's go, right? Like there's the ability to retaliate that Iran has, we've never seen before from a targeted country. And it's not just the ability, because I think Russia has the ability.
It's not just ability though. They had the ability 5-10 years ago. It's right. The will. That's the thing. Ability is and it's also context, because there was no way to close Hormuz without something dramatic happening.
Yeah.
Without a pretext. And I've said this over and over and over again. That they handed Iran a key to their own cell. That they were like, here you go, you can leave now. Just do what you want with it. And that's what they did. They broke out. They did a big, like they did a mass prison break of 90 million people, and it's not, and it will never, and life will never be the same for our planet. Like I don't think there's
no
ever
reason for them to go back. Yeah, there's
never, and it will. And there will have consequences down the line and other choke points. Like this is, Mossad Marco said it today. So we're not gonna, the managed decline of the West. We are watching the unmanaged decline of something like that. We're not gonna sit by and the idle.
I see.
Not gonna sit by idly. Yeah, something like that. But when you say that, that means it's happening. That means in your head, oh, we're losing influence, which is actually what is happening. That the U.S. in some ways reached, and this is where I want to take this, is that this was the final leg of a relay race for the imperialists. Like this was a complicated. Yesterday's live stream, I used a different sports metaphor. I used the wrestling match, that it was like a battle royale or like a big tag team wrestling match. Basically, what this entire war has been between all the parties is that different. Like the first phase of it was Israel versus Gaza versus the Gaza resistance, and like that was the first major sort of phase, and like the enemy was bloodied, and like you have to take turns, and Hezbollah is part of that, and Yemen is part of that, and Iran. All of us were waiting, and we were wondering, and Justin, I'm going to call you out. I remember when you said this, you said, I don't trust your regime. I remember you said that to me in our chat. And that's the thing, because, and I understand that. I understand why you said that. Because, first of all, the Iranians were holding their cards very close to their chest in all of this. I believe that this plan has been in place for a long time, that they're going to do something stupid. And when they do, we're going to do we're going to like overturn the apple cart, which is what I used the term yesterday. Yeah. Like they were waiting for like kind of black swan event, and the imperialists handed it to them. And that's why, of course, that's why Rabbi Khamenei like just stayed there. That's why he just stayed in his house. His family joined him. They said, come and get us. Watch what happens. So this is not, I feel like the Iranians watched the same wars we did. And of course, they fought in them. They fought against them, right, in Syria. Yeah. They watched these wars unfold. They watched America grow closer and closer to its borders. They just nibbling it away at everything. And then when the time was right in this Trump round 2, they realized that they were feeling really punchy. They were feeling really superior. They had a ceasefire in Lebanon, which is to their benefit, right? Like, Hassan Sayyid's gone. Hassan Nasrallah's gone. Hezbollah is profoundly bruised. Let's put it that way. Battered is a better way of putting it. Battered, taking a huge beating. South Lebanon, ecocide, genocidal violence, and they used and they thought that, okay, this is our chance, and they thought that, okay, we'll do a couple of test runs for this, and that's what those kind of what Iranians' response was. Yeah, because the Hania assassination, for instance, was like a display of those little whatever sort of local spike missile units. Not spike, they have some sort of small, they basically had like agents setting up with like Starlink and stuff, but you haven't seen any of that stuff this time around. There hasn't been any of that. The general kind of
but I mean, everything depended on January, right? January of this year. Like, January of this year was the last American chance. Like, that was when, and the people of Iran did not respond the way the West hoped. And that was like the Iranian masses had this role to play where, like, they were just like, no, we're not interested in like a riot regime change, situation. And they just they shut it down. And like being able to, like, the police were getting killed, a lot, and they didn't even.
They weren't armed. They weren't armed the first night. They weren't.
And
armed,
the way that the police like took the hits and basically, essentially, like, got killed, made these sacrifices, and the people were the ones who shut the riots down. Like, it was just like, we're gonna have rallies of millions of people. And like these riots are, and it was so powerful that when Khamenei the elder was like, come on, like, these are just kids. Like, he was able to be so benign because the people were so united at that moment. And that was what, that kind of growing power, people power, really, made Iran, like, we talk about like the only other countries that could stand up to the West, and it's like Russia and China, and it's part of it because of that. Like, if you would never have, like, if somebody tried to do riots in China, they would have a million to one ratio of pro government to anti-government. And
and that's Tiananmen was that attempt, right? Tiananmen was their one attempt to try that. That's true. Hong Kong, that's true. Hong Kong was definitely, and actually, given how nasty they got in Hong Kong, that was definitely familiar of a kind of regime change.
And it's not dissimilar in the sense that lots of Hong Kong police were killed in that, very
set on fire,
very heavy-handed response by the police, and they were killed, and the people were just like, no, we're not doing this.
But that's the thing, like, that the dream of the imperialist is, and I think the only way it would work in the case of Iran is if Iranians did it themselves, right? Yes. That's the only way it worked. That a Syria-style plan wouldn't work. So this is what I want to go to. Every single example of regime change that we can cite in our heads, right? Like from experience, like the U.S. kind of, if we think about the trajectory of this war and how it kind of began with this operation to liberate Kuwait, which was an excuse to then move into the region and make it basically a place for, like, sort of intensify the stranglehold around Iran and the enemy countries back then, because that's also like when Syria was around, when Afghanistan was Afghanistan is still under the Taliban, but it's a different story now, I guess, in the sense that, like, that the dream of, because this is the thing, is that, like, American regime change wars work for a lot of different reasons, but they didn't work in this case because they take their big bad war machine, they show up at your door and they say, we're gonna do the worst things to your country, so give up right now and let us move in, and if you don't do that, we're really gonna get serious. And that's what the aircraft carriers are for now. That's what the planes are for now. This is like an aircraft carrier in today is psychological warfare primarily. And also finance, because it's an excuse to print money, and they cost $1 bajillion, and painting an F-35 is 1 million. After every time they fly an F-35, they have to paint it again, and it costs $1 million. Like that war machine is for economics. It's not for winning wars. However, if you can make it work that you can pay yourself and use your vassal states that you control to sell them overpriced garbage, which you yourself are probably administering and deploying, and like maybe you give some like MRAPs or whatever to some Saudis, be like, okay, go get murdered in Yemen with those. We have some adult work to do. And that seems to me like that model worked pretty well for the U.S. It worked pretty well. I think the toughest, if we think about Iraq 2, they were in Baghdad in 3 weeks. Saddam, the eternal cock, had no even inkling that what Iran is doing, which is like distributive pain across the sort of horizontal axis. Saddam was too much of a dumbass. He sat there, he waited for them to come. He sat there on his hands and he waited for them to come. He proceeds to go and sit in a hole somewhere until the people taking care of him, sending him chocolate bars and keeping him alive and taking his shit bag out of the hole, ratted him out and sold him out to the Americans. Like that's the ignoble end to an unpopular regime. However, and like that, and then you think about
and that's always in their heads. Yeah, that's always in their heads. We're gonna do Iraq like that. We're gonna do Iran like that now. We're gonna do. I mean, now they think they.
What?
Now they think they can do it the way they did Venezuela. That kind of easy win, right? And then Iraq, she said that and got in trouble. Venezuela slapped him on the wrist for saying that in an interview that like you're not going to do Iran like you did Venezuela. But like they have these easy wins militarily speaking, and so they don't know what to do when it doesn't go like that. But the
thing is, like, think about the wins. Let's draw a trajectory of the wins, right? The wins and what they look like, because this is how we got here, I think. Because they were occupying Iraq. After 91, they destroyed the remaining military bases, military sort of strength that was left from the disastrous war that Saddam waged on behalf of the West against Iran. They basically like solved that problem of, like any kind of problems, any leftover good hardware will be gone, and then they got to display how powerful they were. This was the first big war after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So this was like an American full spectrum dominance moment.
Yes.
Right? Like
exactly.
the planes, like the planes and whatever,
cameras.
The like cameras.
CNN
exactly,
was,
Jenks.
Yeah.
This is like that was the basis, and then through the 90s you get the sense that they have kind of like they're setting up something. They are moving in here, like the USS Cole was bombed, and then they were like we gotta go keep an eye on Yemen, we better go and think about this, and then they start moving into the Gulf. Like they start moving into the moving into these vassalized countries that have been hitherto.
Well, I mean the bases, right? The bases in because the internal the Gulf politics of the Iraq War were Saddam Iraq War 1. Saddam invades Kuwait, and then Saudis Bin Laden was like, we can create a Muslim force to fight Saddam, and the Americans were like, no, we'll just set up.
No, you're only good for fighting other brown people.
We're gonna set up bases in Saudi Arabia, which became the biggest contention between them, and so that was a win, but it was also like the wins also have so much to do with either cowing, intimidating, or outright winning over allies from these countries. Like Afghanistan, when the Taliban kicked the Americans out in 2021, they did it without a fight because all the local warlords that had been working for the Americans all gave up. They surrendered or they left. And that's all it took. There was no other battle that had to be waged. And if you kind of take that lens to what's going on in the Gulf now with Iran, that's also Iran's strategy, is basically we're going to take down all the bases, all the collaborators. They always pay for collaborating, and then once you have that, there's no other, like, I think Nasrallah said this. He said we may not even have to fight them once, you know once the American bases are gone. That's pretty much most of the way. You're
Well,
most of the way there.
because that's the thing. That's what I brought up earlier. Is that these are profoundly unpopular governments. Nobody likes
Yeah.
the Bahraini Saudi
Right.
monarchy. Nobody likes the Kuwaiti monarchy. Who even knows what their names are? Like, who? Well, you're gonna die for fucking Al Thani, like the Kuwaiti,
Yeah,
like the Qatari goons. Like, you're gonna die for them. Like, that's the thing. Like, these are countries that have tiers of human beings. Right? They
Yes,
have the top
absolutely.
tier, which is their aristocratic pedo class, and then they have lower tiers of West. The next tier down is Westerners. Well, not even. They're probably even higher up. What am I saying? They're in like a separate tier. But at the bottom of that are the locals, people who live in the region, and they treat
Yeah.
them like dirt. Like, you think those people are gonna get up and show solidarity with like like these governments? No, like that. These countries have no people power, and it's the opposite actually. Their people are against them, so they're vulnerable to the
Yeah.
very things that imperialists use against sovereign countries, right? Which is, as you know, as you're writing a book on this, these non-violent,
Yeah.
regime change movements. That the goal is, and we saw the sort of evolution of that in the Iranian in January, but we saw versions of it for many years, which was, bog down the security services and expose the rifts of society. Like, when you get people in a country fighting, it shows like the inner dynamics. It shows that, oh, so that person stood up and didn't said, oh, we shouldn't do this. Oh, so that's good to know. So it's like a test. So these protests, like, I mean, not, I don't want to be the guy who says, oh, all of them are manufactured. It's not their manufacture per se. It's more how they're interpreted and how they're sold back to the West as, oh, this government is going down. Whereas in reality, most people protest to improve their states, to improve their lives. They don't protest to destroy their own countries. They don't protest to bring about state collapse. The people say in Syria, in Libya, in wherever, and well, it didn't happen in Jordan, in Yemen, for instance, which actually worked out. But those people in the 2009, 2010 were trying to make their lives better. 15 years later, we're looking at Syria. That's the goal. The goal is to have a broken country. So
But
I'm
like,
just
the preparations, like, I think, like, when you look at the wins that they have, it's like I think you've said this to me recently. Like, Syria falling in 2024 was a process that's multi decades old, right? Like, it's not a miracle that they fell in 2024. It's a miracle that they lasted that long, given the sanctions and the all of the investment that went into the destruction of Syria, going back maybe to the 80s, going back maybe to independence in 1946. Like, they've never not tried to overthrow Syria, right? They've never, and when you say, like, you go back to when a time when the West could just impose their will, and like you think of like 1991 Iraq was like the big moment, but like, I think the scramble for Africa was the big moment. Like, like, they're still in that mentality of like, one white guy goes in and says, here's what's going to happen. And then, like, if there's a battle, it's a battle of a whole bunch of, people with spears trying to fight against machine guns. And like, that's just not how it is now, right?
yeah.
With Iran. And it's like, Iran had those things, others have those things, but Iran, you also made a country that powerful, that mad. And it's like, there's this really unique combination of people who are really solid, and they've been tested in January, and they've proven that you're not going to find a traitor. No traitor is going to find any support in this to do anything. Plus, decades of preparation for war, plus all of these adaptations that they've watched. Like, they know so much about what the Israelis do now. They know so much about the assassination strategy. Like, everything that they did that shot, the pager attack, the assassination of Haniyeh, the assassination of all of those leaders on day one of war number two, the June War. Like, all of those things have been analyzed and studied, and they weren't destroyed. Iran wasn't destroyed by all those things, which means those tricks are going to be much harder to pull again. So, there is an element of like, now it really is just a war, the war that Iran has, which is like, can you produce more drones than us? Can you produce more missiles than us? Can you bring them to bear? Can you really intercept them? Can you keep the oil price going with all of these supplies lost? And if you think you're going to build a alternative, like the two things that we should kind of address that have come up since my last sit rep on July 22nd is like Yemen entering the war in a big way, and the attack on Jordan, both of which are kind of changes. Like, Saudi, the Americans had a certain security where they were like, well, look, and I've heard Iranians, again, I'm going to do my best not to name friends of ours that I think are doomers doing counterproductive dooming, but they're like, oh, the Strait of Hormuz isn't even going to matter anymore because Saudi's going to go around. Saudi's going to go via the Yanbu. And it's like, I always say this on the sit reps. If Iran can reach it with a missile, Iran has a say on whether that route is going to work or not. And it turns out Iran didn't even need to because Yemen did. And Yemen attacked the only alternative. And now, like, you're stuck. It's that Watchmen, which I didn't watch, but I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, like, part of this is that the story of all these wars are kept from us. Like, they're not, like, I have a hard time, and that's why I like having you on, because you're good at this. You're way better at this than I am, of keeping all these things straight. Because because the way they give it to us in piecemeal theaters, right? Like, exactly. Oh, this is the Yemeni civil war. Oh, that's the Syrian civil war. Like, that's just Lebanon dealing with its problems. Like, oh, that's just Iranians protesting in the street. Like, it's all, it's presented as if it's some disparate things. Like, oh, that's not there. But it's all part of the same, like, genocidal war against West Asia that has been cutting across, like, where based around primarily, like, subcontracted primarily to the ethno-state. But now, because the ethno-state has not been able to live up to its own promise, right, of being the big bad terror who's going to destroy everything, is, oh, we're the Goliath now. Like, that's basically their mentality. But if you're a Goliath and you can't, and you went up against Goliath. David in Gaza, like, and you lost, and it destroyed your economy, and it destroyed the basis, and it cost you immense amount of political, diplomatic, economic capital, human capital. A ton of people left because they want nothing to do with it, because they'd rather just be Westoids and live comfortably. Like, these are all costs. These are all things that contribute to making you weaker. And that's the thing, is that the way these people fight, and that's I was thinking about this too, is that if they don't win, the losses are so much worse. Because and I know that sounds like weird, because if they imagine the Yemen dirty war, prosecuted by Brits and Americans through Saudis too, and UAE stuff, obviously. They called it a coalition. But it was like, and it was like a global war against one country, right? There were Congolese mercenaries, like Khaliji commanders, American planes, British, like, you know what I mean? Like, no, this is they don't play around when it comes to destroying other countries. And they recognized where Yemen was. They recognized the potential for immense amount of chaos down the line if this impoverished country was able to stand up on its legs and create a kind of serious military power, at least relative to their size, but using their geography.
By the way, population of Yemen is higher than the population of Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And 10 million of the Saudi population is Indian.
Shia. Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. Oh, well, and that's the thing. That's also where the oil is in Saudi Arabia is heavily Shia. And
And
this is
adjacent to
not and like and because of God, because and remember, it's like the cost of Al-Aqsa flood to the Arab vassal regimes was very high, because they had to sit there and say, oh, this is kind of bad, but here's some help, Israel, you're forcing us. Like Tomato King getting up in his like tactical Tomato King outfit, pretending to be fucking Chuck Norris. Like that is an insult to your own people. That is you alienating yourself from your own people. Now, does the Tomato King care? No. Has he ever cared? Like, does it matter to him? Does it matter
He's
to like
English, right?
Yeah, he's English.
He's an Englishman.
Yeah, he's an Englishman, and that's not, and that doesn't matter, right? Like losing there. However, when that works, if people think that, oh, there's no way out of this, right?
Yeah.
Like I realized this the other day. Like they have to win 100%. Because of the nature of their power, because of the nature of how they want to rule, how they want to rule the region, like their refusal to like look around them and be like, well, these are our neighbors, maybe we should treat them like human beings. But no, they can't do that. And so because of that, because of their own racism, because of their supremacist worldview, it forces them to be evil monsters. Now, they are already evil monsters. That's why they think, but like lots of people have racism in them. It doesn't make them go do genocide, right? Like racism is not rare, but when racism is the basis of your political power projection, when it's like the basis of your social unity, when it ties together your disparate society under the name of your racial heritage, like this was like the dream of that. Like that requires complete dominance, like 100%. Like there can be not one critical voice left. So I'm trying to trace in my own mind how their various wins happened, right? Because then you think about like we can start with Oslo, right? Oslo is kind of around Gulf War I, right? Gulf War I, Saddam is chastened. Saddam, who had been hitherto a big supporter of the PLO, mind you, it was a performative support. It wasn't like, it was money. It wasn't like training and weapons. It wasn't.
But like having an Arab army, a well-equipped Arab army, or two, Syria too, and Egypt.
Yeah, Syria too. Yeah.
Well, you lost Egypt in the 70s. Yeah.
Well, think about 1990, or think about beginning of the 90s. The Soviet Union's gone, done, donezo. Russia is being picked apart like a carcass. The Oslo, the people, Afghanistan's fallen, right? Like they won. Yeah. The Palestinian Authority is lost in Tunisia. Is it Palestinian Authority? The PLO is lost and orphaned in Tunisia. They're sitting there doing nothing. They're like human wallpaper in Tunisia, not able to do anything. And then the imperialists hand them something. You want to pretend to be relevant? You can be part of our vassal shield. And they immediately signed it. Like that move by Arafat, right? Like this was not some consensus move. This was an extremely costly move on the part of the PLO, which, to this day still exists. We don't even know where it is. But then you think about how it then played out over the next, it's like I'm trying to think now, the actual like how Arafat sort of slowly realizes that he's been had, and he tries at the very last minute, like Abdullah Saleh actually, to although not do the right thing. Abdullah Saleh tried to do the right thing, and then he went back to doing the wrong thing, and that's how he got killed. But
that was
but Yasser Arafat tried at the last minute to redeem himself, and guess what? There was a coup d'etat. Someone in his own organization poisoned him, probably with the help of the Americans and the Israelis, and it was a coup d'etat, and it's never. We don't call it a Palestinian coup d'etat. We don't talk about the coup d'etat in whatever year it was named as such. It just kind of, right, which reminds us of another country right now. Maybe I don't know if I want to say that, but I don't know if I actually want to make that connection. But it's not that to sure us is not. This is not like that. With that happening, if you think about, then that makes Gaza that much more important, because Gaza becomes, especially after 2005, the last pocket of resistance, right, in Palestine. Now there is some in the West Bank, but the thing is, the West Bank, you also have Palestinians pointing guns at themselves to get them to stop fighting, right? So like the Palestinian armed forces are actually considerable in size, but they're prison guards. That's their first and only job, right? So they don't defend their own people.
If they didn't turn in the past 3 years, it's pretty conclusive that nothing will turn the PA around. The side of resistance.
This phase of it is over. But then I'm trying to put that in a series of wins. That's what I think one of their biggest wins, because then they moved outwards.
Yeah, of course
they tried. They got really cocky because I think in 2006 they tried something big, and that was the war with Lebanon, and it was a calamity. It was a calamity for the imperialists because it proved that the IDF was not capable in any serious situation, that it was only good to terrorize defenseless civilians and break their bones of children. That's its only good for. And it proved, like all those roasted Merkavas, like chestnuts roasting on an open Merkava, like that was a humiliating blow to Western power, because these Arabs shouldn't have been able to do that. They're just lowly Arabs, these Lebanese Shia, but it turned out that it wasn't the case.
So you're tracing the wins, but how do you, like, because I think the wins come, there's a concept again from fighting that like fights are won in the gym. So like, you don't win the fight on the night that you're fighting. You win or lose based on what you did in the months and years leading up to that moment. And like, the Western victories are coasting on all of the centuries of colonialism and the accumulated advantages. And the Iranian, and arguably Lebanese and Palestinian victories are also the fruit of, I would say, decades, not centuries, but decades of preparation. And so Iran won this war when they made the missile cities and they invested in drone production and they delivered services to their people and created a regime that had the legitimacy that it has. And that's when they won. And like, we're just watching that unfold now.
Well, so the win, and that's an interesting thing, because the like, you're right. I think wars aren't won in a day. They're not won by big spectacular, like wars. The wars that imperialists want to fight are quick, brutal, and then end with capitulation. Like that's their job, right?
And that's because they want to use their accumulated advantage. But like again, like
Ali Qadri,
And when why don't we conclude this stream with like what I always try to do is like rein myself in, and like I have had a sense, I'll tell the stream, that like there is a certain momentum that I feel Iran has now that I'm having a really hard time imagining how they could lose now. And so in these moments is when I try to say like, okay, what kinds of black swan events, like what's the pager attack? What is the next thing that can come out of nowhere and actually turn this back around? And obviously nuclear weapons is, always there as a possibility.
But you say that nuclear thing, that you were skeptical
of the nuclear option. Yeah. I am skeptical of the nuclear option. I'm also very skeptical that they can find a Sadat, type of figure.
No, especially now. Oh God, no.
Yeah. So those are the two black swans. I don't see a pager attack. Maybe they're building. There
was an attempt to do something like that, which was basically I think I was watching a video the other day, a cool Egyptian creator on YouTube, and basically and I didn't know this story, is that in August 2023 or something. It was before Alexa flood. And it was a report on Iranian state TV on they discovered that these connectors that connect parts inside the missile. They look like little, I don't know, little things. I can find a picture of it. But those were, it turned out that they had infiltrated the supply chain and put in something like faulty parts, or at a certain time the missile would have gone off track. And so it was discovered and corrected, and on top, I mean, who knows, maybe they blew up some missile cities that we'd never heard of. Maybe they, why would you report that? People would just say, oh, there was an earthquake in some province somewhere. I don't know. But the thing is, because that didn't work, because that, this is the thing, when they try stuff and it doesn't go 100%, it's almost like worse than not trying, because when it gives away what they're trying to do, and it gives away how they're going to go about doing what they do. And then oh, okay, so we have to make every part for our missiles at home, alone, have nobody involved, make them all indigenously. And actually, if resistoids are watching this, I know there's a huge anti-Golubov contingent. Golubov is the man who gave us missile cities, man. There's a video with Hajizadeh. I'll post it.
That.
It was his idea.
Do that. Resistoids, don't do that. Resistoids, you've made me say the word resistoids. Don't do that. Iranian, don't do that.
Well, that's the thing. There's also something in all of this, which is the trauma of the JCPOA. The trauma of the JCPOA
of course,
Iranians, and Golubov's name, the Golubov's signature is, not the signature, but his fingerprints are on it. And so I understand why Iranian resistoids are skeptical and bitter and refuse to accept this. But I think in any ways we're so past that point, because remember, unlike Venezuela, unlike Latin America, there's no Israel. Israel is an actor that ruins everything. It is a chronic ruiner. Okay, it just ruins everything, and it also ruins itself. It ruins its own strategies. It ruins its allies' strategies. It ruins its partnerships. It ruins its own way of going about doing things, because they are so stupid and racist. They really think they're genetically better than their enemies and the rest of the world, including their Yankee empire. Right? That fills you with the kind of sense of superiority that doesn't serve you well in the long term. So you're right. I like that. I'm going to remember this line about you win it long before. And in any ways, remember, Iran has something that virtually no state in the region has, other than Afghanistan. But Afghanistan doesn't have Hormuz, right? Hormuz plus mountains plus missile cities equals sovereignty. Right? Permanent sovereignty. This is a nuclear bomb. It can't even do a fraction of the damage that closing Hormuz does to the day. And it does it in the most environmentally and humane way of hurting the world.
And it gives you time to think.
Go.
It gives you time to think. Yes. It gives you time to think about how to correct yourself, right?
And it makes you look at the people who got you into this situation and say, maybe you're not good for me.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I should walk away from you. Maybe this whole thing that I'm involved with now, is the American empire suddenly going to leave from, I don't know, Philippines? No. Are they going to leave from its various corners around the world? No. But it is leaving West Asia. It's leaving West Asia right now as we speak. They're moving their assets, right? Debasification has happened. This is not a drill. The American empire is a paper tiger. Mao was right, and the difficulty for countries is, how do you get past the brutal violence? How do you and keep it going, right? Because if there were no missile cities, right? Say the Venezuela options, right? Venezuela doesn't have missile cities.
They don't have that. Yeah, they can't.
They don't have that ability. There's no, and USA is also right there too. The US needs to create the ethno state as a base to have a way to have a base, right? So it's the nature of the Iranian strategy is to exploit everything they have, but also to find the weak points of the vassal shield, Arab shield first, but then the American Yankee shield next. And the goal is Jerusalem, obviously. The goal is between and that's the famous line of and I've said this before long ago on a live stream with Adnan. We're talking about the road to Quds. This famous phrase from Khomeini. the road to Quds goes through Karbala. So there's like a double meaning in that, which is Karbala literally, it means like you have to go through, you have to go over and like you have to be, there's like it's something that it's a regional strategy. You have to connect countries that have been disconnected through sort of imperial frameworks, through Sykes-Picot, because Sykes-Picot was created to ensure that there wouldn't be one big country or big countries out of this. Now they let Syria happen, but and Syria didn't work out to their liking, and also the first round of Egypt didn't work out to their liking, although Egypt wasn't in Sykes-Picot. But I guess in the sense that this phase of imperialism we're in, and maybe we can kind of, I know it feels like you need to go, you have to do parental things, but it feels like this phase of imperialism we're in is that finally the gap that imperialists have exploited between themselves and the indigenous people that they conquer for 500 years, like that Civs episode you did on that battle of like 100, like there was no casualties with the Brits. Yeah, like that. I still think about that. Like this, what Iran, every missile the Iranians fire towards their enemies in the region is a historical accomplishment fighting against imperialism on the part of indigenous people, using their resources at home, connecting with their allies around them, ideological and otherwise, and to use that force to not just protect yourself from their violence, but to inflict damage upon them. And this is where I want to end with.
That's so important.
No one has inflicted this kind of damage on the U.S. And this is something we are not even...
You cannot fully defend yourself against these kinds of violence. And that's why, like Venezuela, ultimately, that's why Venezuela, I'm sorry to use the word, lost to the Americans. They had a whole plan for defense against an invasion. They did not have any plan for hitting the Americans back or doing damage that, in retaliation. And that's the difference between Iran and anybody else is, there are things Iran cannot defend against. Iran could not defend, they can't defend their power plants. But if you blow up their power plants, then the lights go out everywhere. And you're just going to have to live with that that's a huge change. That's a huge change in the history of imperialism, that the people the imperialists are targeting can also do devastating damage. So I have a challenge for Resistoids. If you're watching, in the spirit of assuming that nobody here needs convincing. But we do know that dooming is an issue. And here's my challenge. It's not to not doom. But in this moment where in the moments like this, when you feel like the resistance does have the momentum, you can allow yourself some dooming time. Spend some time dooming and think about what can go wrong.
Can doom
there is psychologists who use this. Lara can probably tell us more, but there is a thing where you if you're chronically a worrier, you give yourself some worry time, from 10 to 10:15. I'm gonna allow myself to worry, and just see what you come up with. Write down all your worries. I have that. I'm allowing myself that, and I'm just looking for what is this next pager attack? What is this assassination plan?
But what does it do? It doesn't do anything.
I don't know.
You make a new Iranian. You make a new Iranian general. Is this a difficulty?
Probably
you
even
go to the IRGC
store,
store, you get a new general. What's the problem? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's this is where the religious aspect too. I know you want to go. I'll let you go. Yeah. I promise. Is that the martyrdom is not just something. It's not just some. It's not just a thing they talk. This is a component of these people's belief system. That giving your life for something bigger is an act of humane love, and it's an act of courage. It's an act of this. When you fight for Israel, you're raping people with batons. You're that's what you're doing. You're fighting for the right to do ethnocides. That's not that's nothing.
And fighting to stop that is the most noble thing to fight for, all in itself.
Also, Shahheads. We also should do an episode on the Shahhead, the humble Shahhead, because the Shahhead.
What version are we on now? Yeah, and I mean that's a tech. You've had some really good, really savvy people on your show. who talk about these missiles and things like. But that story is interesting because it's like they sent a bunch to Russia. Russia did a bunch of upgrades. Russia sent them back. There's a whole thing going on.
Anyways, Justin, I can hear your children coming to storm down your door. They have battering ram out.
Yeah, they have something.
I can hear it.
Something out there. Something out there.
Thank you, Justin. I'm glad I bullied you.
Yeah, we're still like, it's good that we're still friends. I'm glad that I could stop avoiding the inevitable.
Yeah. Do more podcasts and also do more sit reps, please. People, everybody in the chat, tell Justin to do more sit reps.
Oh, is that a car horn? That's a car horn, right?
It's an air horn, Justin. It's a sound effect. Okay. Did Justin select the right microphone? No, he did not, and I didn't want to tell him.
Oh, really?
It's fine.
I'm using the webcam. Oh, I am.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. I'll fix it. I'll fix it in post. You sounded fine.
This is how it's supposed to sound, everyone.
Oh, I had one job, and I didn't do it, but that's okay. We got Justin.
On the system. Yeah, on the system settings. It said,
it's fine.
Sorry,
it's
guys.
Okay. You sounded great. Thank you. People are saying another sit rep, please, Justin.
Okay.
More sit reps, please. Look at all these chats, Justin. Look, they're bullying you now too. Remember, folks, bullying works. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Justin. You're the best. Abu Tanki returns. Say bye to Abu Tanki. Bye.
Grando.